I just remembered an experience I had in a previous holiday season that taught me that whatever disgusting that's happening today, oftentimes in the future, will be something that would be funny to look at. And if you can just bring up that future mentality to your problems today, it might make the problem a lot easier to solve. So 15 years ago, I had a fear of flying. At the time, 9/11 was still fresh on my mind. Space Shuttle Columbia was still fresh on my mind. But aside from the fear of actually flying, I also didn't like going to a foreign country. My family's from Taipei. My cousin was going to school in Canada at the time, and sometimes there were a few other places we'd go in between that. But I really hated it because at the time I used to be a very picky eater. I mean, toward the end of the time, by the time that I'm talking about right now, I wasn't so picky anymore. But before then, I really loved my comfort food around home. My favorite fast food restaurant was Burger King. I had a lot of favorite junk foods, and I just didn't like to have to leave all that behind to go to another country where I couldn't find my favorite comfort foods. Not that I would starve myself or anything, but or just not being able to find my comfort places. You know, earlier today, I got into a little disagreement because I was trying to find out about this office party, if you will, event, and I got a little bit uncomfortable about it because I wasn't sure when I got to the event if I would have a place to plug in my computer and if I would have a Wi-Fi connection. And there's my computer over there. To give you an idea, the computer only has about 30 to 45 minutes of battery because it has a very large RAM, and I write a lot of computer games that use a lot of RAM. And I get very uncomfortable if my computer is inaccessible. I mean, I like having the computer charged up, and as soon as I have a game idea, to be able to turn it on and to do something. And sometimes when I go on these road trips, and I can't find an outlet, or I can't find a Wi-Fi connection to do my research, even if I don't have anything I want to search at the moment, it gives me a sense of unease. And I had caused a little bit of a problem at a different office event a few years ago because I didn't have a Wi-Fi connection. I got very uncomfortable. So I was trying to ask my boss when we get there if I would have a place to plug in the computer at least. Maybe not Wi-Fi, but at least a place to plug in the computer. And he didn't have a good answer for that. And it made me very uncomfortable. And now I have to really think about if I want to go to that event. But it gives you an idea of how much I get comfortable with a certain situation. And having to leave that comfort zone is a very tricky prospect for me. So I didn't like to travel for that reason back then. I know it's funny, but I get very comfortable in a certain situation. So my parents left without me. They went to Vancouver, BC. We were living in Pittsburgh, so not really driving distance, to visit my cousin who was going to school, and I stayed behind because I had a fear of flying and all the other stuff that I just mentioned. And I caused quite a bit of trouble. See, I was also trying to lose weight at this point. And one night, I had eaten a little bit more than I thought I should. And I had the syndrome of, I've already blown it. You know, let's eat everything that I've been wanting to eat tonight because I've already blown it anyway. It's called abstinence violation effect, just in case you're curious. So I went out to get more food. We lived about a mile and a half away from the grocery store. I walked to the store. I got some food. I got a 10-pound bag of potatoes and some coconut oil, and I made some homemade French fries, and I wolfed it all down. 10 pounds of potatoes! Because I felt I had already blown it. I might as well eat everything that I've been depriving myself of by this point. And I wolfed it all down. I felt even more guilty, obviously. This is a big problem with the abstinence violation fallacy. You don't satisfy it by eating more. You dig yourself a bigger hole with it. And so I went out to get more food, and I wolfed it all down. And by this time, I felt really, really guilty. And I felt very disappointed at myself. You see, I had the fear of flying. I had addiction to my comfort zone, like how I just mentioned, not even being able to go to an office party because of uncertainty about whether or not I have a place to plug in my computer. I had obviously binge eating problems. I was overweight, you know, all these other things. And by this time I wanted to kill myself. And I went out to get more food thinking that, okay, I'm going to eat myself to death. And I had started to write a note to a bunch of people, and I started eating, and I thought I was going to kill myself with food that night. I took another trip out. So this would have been my third trip for that night to go out to get food. And I was thinking about what I would write in my note to leave behind to my parents. And I had a girlfriend at the time. And before I could return home, I got to a park bench and I just collapsed. I collapsed. I had a little bit more food than I could handle. And the local police came by to check on me, and they thought I was high on drugs. They thought I was high on drugs, and I explained to them that, you know, I was only supposed to eat 3,000 calories, and I had gotten to 10,000. I felt really guilty, and I just decided I wanted to eat myself to death. And obviously the concept of eating myself to death really scared the local police. And by this time, my parents had got to Pittsburgh Airport, so the local police called my parents to check on what I was saying. And my parents confirmed to them that, yeah, I did have this kind of a problem. They would be coming to pick me up. And my parents were really upset. I got a very significant spanking that night, if I remember correctly. My mom especially, she gets very emotional, and it's kind of funny because later that night, as I was thinking about it and how the police had accused me of doing drugs, I kind of wish I only had a drug problem. You know, I had an overeating problem, I had this abstinence violation fallacy. At the time, very few people would accept it. You know, if I had a drug problem, if I were high on cocaine and crashed out on the street, or high on alcohol and crashed out on the street, at least more people could relate to it. And I'm so relieved I didn't actually go through with the plan and kill myself with the food. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise that I collapsed on that park bench. Because since then, I've gotten over quite a number of these fears. I've flown quite a bit since then. I'm starting to step away from my comfort zone. I think I'm going to go to this party, even if I can't get a place to plug in my computer. I just want to know if I can plug in, so I can prepare accordingly. I think I'm going to, I learned that not to restrict how many calories I eat, because I have this effect of binging if I break that limit. Instead, I swear off various ingredients or compounds in food. For example, I haven't eaten any trans fat. I stay away from high fructose corn syrup. There's a long list of ingredients. I don't want to spend a whole video on that. I don't know what would happen if I relapsed, though. Well, I have accidentally consumed some of these things, and I haven't relapsed, so it's hard to say, but I find I'm much more in control this way. So it really brings up the idea that you have to know yourself inside and out in order for any diet plan or any plan for life to work, just like I know that I have to find out about this computer before going to this party. Thanks for watching.